All right. Hey, my friends, and welcome to this episode where we're going to talk about helping a loved one with OCD and anxiety and what to do when there are heightened emotions in the room. And so for those of you that don't know me, my name is Matt Cotty. I'm a licensed clinical social worker. I'm the founder of Restored Minds and the creator of the AAA Response. And before we dive in, I'd really appreciate your support by liking and subscribing and even sharing this on your social to really get this out to as many people as possible that need it. And so, like I said on this series, what we're doing here is we're really creating a series for loved ones of people who live with people who also have OCD and anxiety, right? So the spouses, the brothers and sisters, the children, right? The parents, right? Whoever you might be, this series is created for you. And if you're dealing with OCD, this is also, a good series to share with your loved ones, as well as understanding how you can tell them how to help you, right? Because we need to understand that OCD and anxiety is a family issue, right? It always bleeds into the family one way or another, right? And if our goal really is recovery, it's about healing as a family unit, not just the individual, right? So we all got to take our responsibility of our aspects in this healing process. So today, we talked about, in the first episode, just the importance of taking care of yourself as a family member, right? And not over prioritizing anyone else over yourself, because eventually your cup's just going to run dry. In the last episode, we talked about how reassurance is like one of the biggest things that people do that keeps people sick, right? It's really like a drug that you're giving the person, and the importance of not giving reassurance. But today I want to talk about what happens with the fallout of that, right? So what happens when a person gets really upset, really frustrated, really angry, right? And how do we go through those times? Because again, it's naturally going to happen. Now, as someone who works with people who deal with OCD and anxiety, right? I mean, this is like part of my daily experience, right? The person's getting exposed to something or facing a trigger, and they don't want to do that, right? And they're having this, oftentimes extreme distress rise up in their body, which then can often take over their behavior, right? And they can become very reactive, right? So when that happens, one of the best things, and this is kind of point number one, to do is to remind the person of the context, right? Why are we doing what we're doing here, right? So let's say the individual is coming to you as a family member and is like, hey, I need you to give me reassurance about this, right? So they usually will ask you like, hey, are you sure about XYZ, right? And it's usually a question you've heard many times. That's how you can kind of identify it as reassurance. And you say, hey, look, it sounds like reassurance. If I give you reassurance, it might make you sick in the long run. I really want to help you get better, so I don't want to give that to you. And then they might get reactive, right? Because it might be a high level of distress that day, and they might start to get even angry with you. So what do you do then, right? Well, the reality is that there are going to be these episodes that you're going to need to go through to heal, okay? Because if you have to remind yourself about why we're doing what we're doing. We got to be willing to tolerate the short-term conflict and the short-term discomfort for the long-term success of recovery, and what that's going to look like, not only for the individual but also for the family unit. It's like you have to ask yourself. So oftentimes when someone's struggling with OCD and anxiety, I have them take kind of an inventory of how it's impacting their life. Because this is the thing that most people don't even realize, right? It's like they might sit there and have these loops going on and be obsessing about a certain thing, and they think that thing is the problem, not realizing that, well, they're, lost a job and they don't have any, real deep friendships. They're not having, they're not pursuing a relationship or things they really want to pursue with life. Like that really is the problem of OCD, is that it prevents us from living how we really want to live, right? So when that happens, it's important as a family member to like bring yourself back to that and ground yourself in that. Like, remember what you're fighting for. You're fighting for not just the individual's freedom, right? And you're supporting their long-term freedom and recovery, but also as a family unit, like what's it done to your family? Does your family have all these rules that you guys have to live by, to accommodate the person and, so on and so forth? And has it gotten to the point where you guys some people just don't even like being in their house anymore, right? And I'm talking about like family members. So if that's the case, right, Well, then what we got to do is we really got to kind of ground ourselves into why we're doing what we're doing, and remember the context, right? You're not putting the person in short-term distress because you like to see them in distress. We're going through this process together because you're interested in their long-term recovery, right? And reminding yourself of that and reminding them of that. And usually that's enough to, when we have the proper education and everyone understands the big concept, right? Like then that's usually enough to at least mitigate the reaction, right? In my experience, at least just coming back to that education, coming back to that large goal that we're all working towards and reminding the person of that. Now, sometimes, that's not enough. The person's like, I don't care, right? I don't care about that. I want you to do this. And this is where it's kind of a pick your battles choice, right? Because look, ultimately the recovery of the individual is on them, right? They're the only person that can really get themselves better. They're the only person that can really do the work. And, sometimes if it's getting to the point where, like people are getting aggressive and stuff like this, then, then in some cases I would say, hey, like maybe it's appropriate in that, like you'll have to use your best judgment in that case, right? Because we don't want it ever to become a dangerous situation. But if that is the case, then I guess I would really go back to even a higher level of like, look, it really is about having that person take responsibility. And one of the most important things is that we all have to be aligned with the goal of recovery. So if you as a loved one are trying to help the person recover and they aren't wanting to do it and they don't want to recover, they don't see it as an issue, you are going to run into a lot of conflict. And again, what we don't want to do is take too much responsibility as the loved one, as the family member, right? It's not your job to get anyone better. We have to remember that. Yes, of course you support them and of course you want them to get better. But at the end of it, they have to make the choice and they have to want to do it. And if you're trying to force it on them, you are going to have a lot of conflict because they're not in agreement with this plan, right? So, rarely do I see it get to that point. In fact, I've never really seen it get there because the biggest part of this process of really recovery from OCD and anxiety is that education about what we're really doing, why it works, how it rewires the brain, and all of that. And again, if you haven't, or if you're looking to get more information on that in our Taking Back Control Bootcamp, right, in our 90-day program, like we explain it all, right? And you guys can go through it together as families, right? I mean, that's the whole point. It's all online, right? And we have some links down in the notes where we can link that up. But yeah, I mean, I guess that's when you're talking about a huge emotional reaction, the first thing is to always align with the long-term goal. Now, that again assumes that you guys have come to the realization that this is a problem for everyone and you both have the same long-term goal. And if you don't, and you want your family member to get better and they don't want to get better, then in the next episode, I'm going to talk about what to do when, your family member doesn't want help or your loved one doesn't want help. So we'll talk about that in the next episode. But for this one, the main point that I think is the most helpful is always coming back to context, reminding yourself what we're really dealing with. Again, whatever they want reassurance about is not the actual issue. The issue is the OCD and anxiety loop. And so bringing it back to that, remember that OCD is the real villain here. It's the thing that we're fighting together, right? And we actually align together to fight it, right? And if you forget that you're fighting OCD, what's going to happen is you're going to villainize each other, right? So you're going to see them as the problem, they're going to see you as the problem, and then the conflict just builds. So the first thing is really understanding the big context, right? Hey, we want you to get better from OCD, right? And if I give you reassurance, that's not going to get you better. It's going to make you feel better today, but it's going to keep you sick long term. We got to be okay with not feeling okay today so we get better over the long term, right? And that's really that goal there. So hopefully that makes sense. And so that's really to summarize, right? If you are dealing with high levels of emotion in your household or wherever, really making sure you guys are both aligned with the same goals of that recovery, and really when the person is asking for reassurance or something like that, some kind of accommodation, aligning with those goals together, right? And really making sure you're clear about that. And like I said, in the next episode, what we're going to do is we're going to talk about what to do when the person's not aligned with the idea of recovery and not doesn't want help and you're living with them. So hopefully that makes sense. Hopefully that was helpful. And again, I'll look forward to seeing you guys in the next episode. If you're looking for more resources on this, again, we have some right down in the notes below. And so please check those out. Also, please help us out by subscribing, liking, and sharing as well. To help us get this to as many people as possible that are struggling. So again, my name is Matt Cotty. Thank you so much for hanging out today, and I look forward to seeing you in the next episode. Take care. Thank you so much for watching that video. And so if you're struggling with OCD and anxiety, I just wanted to let you know that we have a free training for you over at Restored Minds, where you can start learning how to use our AAA response to really break out of that loop and ultimately take back control of your life. And all you need to do to access is just click the little link below, and you'll be taken to a page where you can register today. Thank you so much.